went to Iran twice, helped organise the Japan, went to China in 2019, and we were going to do Portugal, but that unfortunately didn't eventuate. But we're hoping come 2022 and roll out with vaccines, and as the world starts opening up again, we'll start offering these workshops again. So tonight we've got Scott McNaughton, who is actually a graduate here from PSC, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Long.
Yeah, and Scott's also a teacher specifically does a lot with the part-time courses. And we've also got Joe and Kerry, who are both students or have been students with PSC, just to sort of tell you about their experiences here. So you don't want to listen to me talk about me. I think you want to hear to Scott and listen to the students. So Scott, I'll pass it over to you. You can.
Awesome, thanks for that. Yeah, guys, thanks for coming down. So tonight, just a good opportunity for you guys to answer any questions, or ask any questions that you may have about the course, and for me to kind of run through and just talk about the particulars of what we cover off on, what we do, and any of the learner outcomes that you may be interested in as well. So as Andrew was saying, I did graduate, but it was in the 90s. It was a very, very long time ago that I did go through the college. But I am a full-time working photographer. I work for the Age newspaper, and I also work for Victoria Police and a few other clients, including Beyond Blue and a few of those kind of non-government agencies as well. So yeah, I've been working for 20 years in the industry, and yeah, I also do photography as a hobby as well. So in terms of my expertise in photography, it's a work kind of environment. It's also a hobby that I do. So when I come to the college and teach, and I've been at the college for a few years now, I basically just teach camera craft to students coming in. And it was funny, I was just talking to Joe before you guys all came in here, and we're sort of talking about teaching the course and what it's like to kind of teach a photography course to different people who come from different areas of photography. So we were sort of saying that in our class that we did last year, we had quite a few students who were very new to photography, who were sort of picking up the camera for the first time in a long time, next to students who kind of been shooting prolifically over a long period of time as well. So what we do at the college is that we kind of break it down to its very simplistic form and then build up from that perspective as well. So depending on where you're coming from with your knowledge of photography, our aim is to kind of get that back to basic and then work from that perspective as well. So from a teaching position, it's actually quite hard to kind of pitch that in the middle somewhere. But what I always find with photography is that you don't know what you don't know till you don't know it. And you learn very quickly what you don't know when it comes to photography. So you'll learn that, you'll learn the technique of the camera, how to actually utilize the camera, but more importantly, you'll also learn how to visualize and how to start seeing like a photographer. One of the things that I truly believe with photography is that photographers lead a charmed existence. We see things differently, and irrespective of the camera that you use, what we aim to kind of teach you guys is how to see things differently, how to see the world from a very different perspective. And I think when you hear from former students here that it's so true. Once you turn it on, you can't turn it off. You start to see things very, very differently. And what I thought we'd do is we actually just go through and look at a couple of photos from previous students' work, just to get a kind of mind's eye around what we kind of teach as well. Do we have the lights? Can we kill those while we kind of run through some images on the? Okay, I'll go that one. So these are just some images. I'll let these play through. With the class that we run, so the first 20-week program that I run, we're basically just looking at camera craft and how to utilize your camera, how to tell stories, and how to output effective images consistently, which is one of the main things that I like to kind of build into people, is this ability to produce good work out of the camera. There's also the digital side of things, which we teach as well. So getting you into position where you're shooting a lot of images, you're downloading them, you're backing them up, you're editing them, and then you're exporting them, which is based on a professional workflow of a lot of images coming in. But you know, the backing up of images is really important. That's something we really kind of stress as well. But working in the media and working for the Age, I don't get to do a lot of Photoshop. So I really do stress this idea of get it right in camera, and then you don't have to do too much digital work afterwards as well. So getting it right in camera is a mantra that's kind of been drummed into me for many, many years. So these images that you're going to see now are basically the final folio of students that they produce over a 20-week program. So what we aim to do is kind of open up all different genres of photography for you. So there's people photography, there's landscape photography, there's still life photography. It's kind of a tasting platter of all different subgenres. As you move through the different classes, if you want to extend your study, you start to narrow that broad kind of scope down into particular kind of areas of photography that you want to work in. But it starts out very broad because people come to us with different niches of, I love landscape photography, that's all I want to do, or I hate portraiture, I never want to take photos of people. But we kind of get you out looking at all different kinds of genres to kind of help you focus in, pardon the pun, down on what you want to do with photography as well. But as a side note, I'm always very interested in how photographers or students come to us at the start and say, I hate portraiture, I could never take portraits. 10 weeks later, that's all they're doing. They love portraiture because we get you out of your comfort zone and we get you taking photographs that are, you know, of a unique nature to you. One of the other things that I like to think about photography is that everyone's a photographer because we all have access to cameras. Everyone's sitting on a phone or something that can capture an image, but a true photograph is something that tells a story, that kind of says something about the person that's taking the image. And what we aim to do is to kind of get you with your own personal style of photography. So get you starting to see the world in a particular way and then capturing in that way as well. I've just come back from a week's holiday in Tasmania, which is the first holiday I've had in a very long time. And just walking around with the camera was absolutely fantastic for me. I didn't have to do any work down there. I was just enjoying being out in the environment with a camera and just taking photographs. And that's my happy place. That's what I like to do. And that's what I'll be getting you guys to do as well, is to go out and just shoot. Shoot, shoot, shoot. So as you can see, there's a very large range of images here from my fabulous students who do very good work. I will take credit for all of those because they're exceptional work. Are there any questions that people sort of want to ask straight off the bat? Certificate for? No, this is, I'm good at photography. I'm not good at this stuff as well, but this would be the early units for the advanced diploma. Is that correct? Am I using words there correctly? Excellent. So it's the starting to the advanced diploma. If you do the 20-week program, leading into the 40-week and then beyond, after 3 years, 4 years, yeah, it's the advanced diploma equivalent. Actually sounded like I knew what I was talking about then, didn't I? Any other questions, guys? I mean, there's got to be some burning questions here. Again, if you have any questions about it whatsoever, I do teach the first 20-week program. So it's basically, you know, all camera craft. It's about using the camera, using the settings. Like I said at the top, if you're returning to photography after a long time or you've just got a new digital and you want to kind of upskill on it, perfectly for you. I think you cannot be intimidated by the group. The group grows as a real dynamic, and you guys will probably speak about that in a second, but the group that you go through with, all photographers bound by one thing, which is photography. And it's amazing that the first week of class, it's very timid and everyone's very nice, but by the end of it, everyone's having these really deep esoterical debates about photography because everyone's kind of gone through that same journey together and really started to express themselves. And just on a side note, with COVID, so look, I was, I don't know if I call it lucky or unlucky, but working in the media, I was allowed to go out and still shoot during the whole experience. So I got really good access to what life was like out there. But for my students who I was teaching online, it presented a really unique set of circumstances where everyone had to turn inwards to start photographing and start finding things that are interesting to photograph. Now, one of the things I always say is you can go to Paris and you can take an interesting shot of the Eiffel Tower because it's the Eiffel Tower. What I found with my students was that they actually had to go to the end of their street and find something interesting, and they did it. And I was so proud of the work that all my guys managed to produce during that period because they really had to look inward, and remarkable photos of unremarkable things, I think, is the best thing that a photographer can do. So that kind of body of work really lent itself towards that. No other questions? Any questions about the cricket as well, which is going on right now? We should be watching that, but that's all right. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of time frame, so the class that I teach would be 3 hours contact during the week, and then I give you tasks to go out and do and kind of to cover off on whatever the topic of discussion is that we've gone through in class. You're going to go out and then take photographs. Obviously, the more photographs you can take, the better off for you. But if your only homework is to go out and take photos, that's pretty awesome. You just literally have to go out and take photos. So if you have, and I mean, life happens. Sometimes you're going to have really busy weeks where you can only throw an hour into going out and taking photographs. Other weeks you'll be really quiet and you'll get the opportunity to go out day after day and just keep shooting. So it really does depend on what, you know, is happening in your situations in your time frame. The other good thing that we do too is that all the classes that we go through will be up online. You guys will have access to all the material that we go through in class. So if I speak too fast or you don't understand a word I'm saying, you don't have to ask me to repeat it. You can actually go back and look at it at your own leisure. I tend to waffle and digress a little bit sometimes, don't I? So we try and bring that back on track as well. But you do have access to that. And I think with photography, which is quite technical, sometimes something in the class sounds, you know, 100% fine until you're in the field with the camera, with the subject in front of you, and then everything I've said's gone completely out the window. You forget about it. That's when you can go back over those notes, look at things again, and kind of reaffirm some of that technical decision-making process that we have. So again, it kind of depends on how many hours you've got to throw at it, but the more the better. But obviously, yeah, life will kind of do that. Do one of you guys want to speak in terms of the student perspective of, Joe, you look like a deer in headlights. Does that mean you want to go first? Is that? Yeah, jump up. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Good catch. There's a little clicky thing there.
Like that. Does that make any difference? Yeah? Yeah? Oh, okay, cool. All right. So my name's Jo, and I might just read notes that I wrote earlier. I'm not used to public speaking. So, okay, I had no formal art or photography education. I was self-taught and bought a digital SLR just over 4 years ago. During this time, I played constantly. Just learning through mistakes, and Instagram had been my main source of inspiration, and that was pretty much it. Within the last 4 years, I've been involved in a solo exhibition, group exhibitions, and had single images published. But I hit a wall. I don't know, I got really enthusiastic, and then I just hit this wall. And where are we? I felt I had a lot more to explore, but I couldn't really tap into it. I was recommended to the PSC by a few photographers that had studied here. There were students here. And before I knew it, I talked my husband into me studying and enrolled in the pro photography certificate, suited perfectly with work. I work 4 days. It was on a Friday. It was like most convenient, and it fitted in really well. We were due to commence at the in this building, but then COVID kicked in, and unfortunately that changed things dramatically here. Now studies were moved to remote studies. I was disappointed. It wasn't what I expected at first. Not attending the college, and found the whole idea of remote studying quite daunting. However, it worked. It worked really well. I live in Wood End, and not traveling for 2 hours a day was very appealing. The class quickly adapted to remote studies. The teachers and student services were extremely supportive during this time, the transition, and continue to be so. When I began the course, my main concern was being in the class of students at different levels. I knew there were a couple of beginners that hadn't even really, held a camera. I was concerned I'd be held back. I was, wanted to get what I could from the course. I was concerned that studying would make me think more when shooting, change my style and approach in a negative way. But I was proven wrong. Our class was awesome. Students of different levels, learning from each other. Teachers weren't so bad. I put amazing here. And as you already may know, many work in the industry at present, which is a big bonus as well. And weekly they shared their experiences and their broad knowledge with us. The classes were tailored to meet students' individual needs, also offering one-to-one chats, which was great with Zoom. If we needed to have a chat with Scott, he was available, which was really valuable. There's so much to learn and to be aware of, and I was greatly inspired, learning the most important things that have clearly enriched my creative journey, going over the basics, new techniques, learning things about my camera I hadn't known existed in my camera. My bodies of work began to have more meaning. I looked forward to Fridays. I was extremely inspired and still am. part of the course, it's expected to explore different genres and avenues. And I found myself immersed in still life. And now have an ongoing project called Plastic World that was initiated from an early class with Lucia. And yeah, and I can't wait for semester 2 on February the 5th. Yeah, and that's me. So, was that all right? Okay, shall I just click through this? Oh, have you read? Great, so I can sit down. Beautiful, gorgeous.
Hi, thank you for coming. I haven't written a long speech like Joe. I decided to come last year to improve my photography. I've just dabbled in photography over the years, and then the kids left home, and then we decided to travel, and I thought, well, it's time to actually read the instructions on the camera and learn how to do it properly. So that's what started my photography journey, and it just grew and grew and grew, and the PSC was recommended to me, and I certainly appreciate that it has been worthwhile, and it's incredibly inspiring. All of the teachers they have come from quite different backgrounds in their photography. Some are artists, some are photojournalists like Scott, and they all have so much to give, and they're all very generous in their time and their knowledge, and it's incredibly inspiring. And I find the networking between the students is fantastic. There's a lot of networking, especially with social media. And because of COVID, we weren't able to get together so much, but we would often have chats online and then meet up for shoots at some point when we could get back out and that sort of thing. And everyone's following their own journey, so everyone gets out of it what they need to progress in their own style of photography and their own desires for what they want to do with it at the end of the day. And no one's competing against each other, which means everyone's really helpful, basically, to support each other, and everyone's full of information that's good to share. So it's been really valuable experience. So I've come back for a second year to enjoy and take my photography further. So if anything, I've just keep learning that what I love is still got so much more to learn about it. So I'll just keep on learning. And it's been very good. Yeah, you never stop learning. And it's been terrific. And the facilities, you've all been for a tour. It's excellent. The library is fantastic. You can get inspiration from anything there, and a lot of the libraries online as well, so you can look things up. And the course is extremely well structured. It makes sure it's well rounded, so you get an understanding of everything that you need to know. It's all comprehensive, so what's discussed in class is backed up in the notes, and you can always go back and refer to it. And then the assignments and the exercises and the workshops all create that bonding of that knowledge so that you can move further with your own photography. So yeah, it's been really, really good. Thank you.
So, is there any questions anyone has about anything at all? I was expecting a grilling. This is brilliant. This is like, yes. It varies. It sort of depends. We've had classes sort of from 8 or 9 to 10 up to about 15 or 16 normally. So yeah, it just depends on the intakes normally. But I make myself readily available, so I'm contactable sometimes via email. They laughed because that's true. I am. That's right, guys. Yeah. But as Joe said, so the thing with Zoom is it's been fantastic is that if someone is falling a bit behind, then we can kind of catch up a little bit and just go over a few things. And also before class, I make myself available to go over anything that you may have in terms of questions. Because like I said before, everything makes complete sense in this room until you get out into the real world and there's something in front of you and you need to photograph it. And it's funny, even on Instagram today, I had a former student who put an image up, and she just wrote in the bottom that when she was taking the frame, she had my voice in her head telling her, do this, don't do this. And after I got over the initial creepiness of that, it kind of made a little bit of sense, because it means that everything that I was teaching actually went in, and she was making decisions about what she was doing based on stuff she remembered in class as well. So And like I was saying, you never stop learning, you keep kind of shooting and you keep moving forward in that space of building consistency into your images and then going on your own journey as well, because I mean, I can't tell you how to take photos of particular things, that comes from you, but what I can do is I can teach you how to look at things and how to use that camera to take those shots as well. So there's a lot of you in that journey of becoming the photographer that, you know, you want to become as well. I'm going to keep answering them, so it's fine. Yes, so in my class in the 20 weeks, we have 3 assignments, and they're based around the techniques that we kind of go over in class. So basically, you know, we'll do a class on shutter speeds where we'll pick apart everything to do with shutter speed, and I'll send you out to kind of put that into real world practice. And then the week later, we'll come back and look at those images in class. So it's kind of the way we structure the class is the first part of it, we do a lecture, which is about an hour-and-a-half discussion on a particular topic. And then the second part is the review process where we look at your images. Now, that review process is probably the best way of developing your photography, because what you get to do is get to have your images up here and we will discuss them as a class. And that's where a lot of that growth happens, because in the first couple of weeks, it's real Disney. There's a whole lot of, I like it, it's nice. But once people sort of build in that idea of kind of getting a bit braver in the environment, we'll start to offer up tips and advice on how to get better at certain things. And early days, I do lead a lot of the discussion, but by the end of it, the class kind of takes over and they really start to push people out of their comfort zone and start to look at those images. And I think photography is one of those things where we need an audience. And I think you have an inbuilt audience in your class, because your classmates will look at your work, they will validate it, and they will offer up opinions on how to make it better as well.
So just in terms of assignments, like, is it an assessment?
Yes.
Is it graded like
Those 3 assignments are graded, yeah. From the criteria is all available. You can look at the criteria and how it's all done, but it's predominantly from a technical aesthetic. So choices of camera settings, those type of things. You kind of think it's kind of subjective to put a grade to something that's quite unique and creative like photography, but we can look at it from a technical perspective as well. And depending on where you're kind of coming from, that initial grading comes from, you know, starting at the bottom. If you've got a camera in your hand for the first time ever, then you can still make those considered choices on how to use the camera technically. So, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not at all. This is cool.
so there's a course on Friday or something. And I can't make it. And I'm one of those, like, starting from my phone and doing my camera. So you look at the course cover. Like, if I can't do that, will there still be some element of, you know, I mean, I know how to turn the camera on.
Yeah.
Completely basic, but I'm just so out of practice.
That's all right.
I'll take it off and be weird if you stand
All right,
yeah.
that's right. Part of the beginning of this course is basically to get you learning your basics, so you can then use the camera to a more fuller extent. And that sort of leads me a little bit into the actual course structure. In your information bag, there's an outline, the basic outline of the course structures. We've got the Pro Photography Certificate, which is 40 weeks, and the Creative Photography Certificate, which is 20 weeks. The beauty of the Creative is that's the first 20 weeks of your Pro Photography Certificate as well. So whether you choose to do the 40 weeks, which I think I can highly recommend, is a great option. If you start with the 20 weeks and you feel, actually, I'm really enjoying this, I'm getting a lot out of it, I want to increase my knowledge, then you can enroll for the second half of the Pro Photography, and you don't have to repeat those 20 weeks that you've already done. And then if you really want to take it further, you can then, once you've completed the Pro Photography Certificate, that's your first year of your Advanced Diploma. So if you then decide to go to the Advanced Diploma, you're starting at second year, you're not disadvantaged at all. I suppose the other thing I was going to ask you to talk about was the weekend intensive. Okay. Yeah, if you just quick outline.
And just to kind of dovetail that question too, the very second class, we talk about how to hold a camera. So we go basic, but there's a technique, there's a proper, anyhow, we'll get into that. I won't give away too many secrets. There is, you got to, you know, steady both. Yeah, so you came to us from, you actually did a lot of shooting prior to coming, didn't you? And yeah. And you hold the camera very well now, so. Yeah. So in terms of that, like migrating from phone to camera, that's absolutely built in. But we've had students who are shooting weddings who still come in and do it just because they want to reaffirm what they've done. And again, with photography, there are so many different ways to do everything that I think you can kind of think you know what you're doing until you don't, but we really do break it down. So it goes the perfect pace in terms of building back up from that, the technique of it. And I've been shooting professionally for 22 years and I still learn things. I still take on board new things, and I'm not the same photographer I was this time last year, because in the last year I've done so much learning and different space that I kind of grow with it as well. I think that's, you know, part of that journey that you move through. Weekend workshop. So the Weekend Workshop is a 2-day intensive course that we offer as well, where you can really put into practice everything that you've learned, where you kind of take all the techniques that we've been building into you. Normally comes at about week 9 or 10 or thereabouts. So you've kind of got this background of technical information, and then we go out and put it into practice in the real world environments. And we have 2 different assignments on those 2 days, and one of them's a photo essay where we get you to go out and actually put together a photo essay from a top secret location, and start to tell the story of, you know, your journey in this particular space, and put together what we call a photo essay, which is a 12-image story of what it is that you're seeing and what it is that you're discovering. And again, this kind of goes back to that idea of interesting photos from, you know, not boring locations, but locations that are probably quite familiar to you, looking outside the normal and making extraordinary images from ordinary environments. So that's a 2-day intensive weekend that runs over Saturday, Sunday. By the end of the Sunday, you are very knackered, and you've probably shot more images in those 2 days than you have in your entire life. But in doing so, you really do take a lot from that, and it's a really good experience to, you know, test your mettle out in the real world with people, humans, and you know, real world environments as well. Cool. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
How did you receive a lot of that information? Do you think a lot of people doing that knowledge of you?
I went in there because I really wanted to learn, and I was really skeptical about starting at that level. I'm so glad I did. So it's like any course, you know, you can walk away from any course, but you can just gain something so small that makes so much difference. So there would have been a few things in those early weeks that I'll take with me always. They were small but huge for the impact for me of my journey. Yeah, so no regrets. And it was really interesting. Oh God, no, absolutely not. I wouldn't have gone in. And I was thinking, oh, I need to go a higher level than this, you know, it's going to hold me back. And in our group, we had one of the students, and she pretty much hadn't held a camera, had she, Shelley? And, you know, and you're like, wow, okay, she's there and I'm here. But it was amazing. You know, we all learned. And at the end of it, we were all so aware that even though we'd come in at different levels, it had been tailored to meet all of our needs, as I said before. We all got something different from it, depending on where we were at that stage. So, but it was a win-win for all of us. Like, you know, I think I can speak for the others. So yeah, I hope that answers. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Do you want Scott?
Yes, it's called a Canon, and it's that's a bit of brand loyalty. Good question. So in terms of cameras, simplest is better. I mean, we've had students come in who have got, you know, brand new cameras with 16 lenses, and they're all raring to go, and that's great. And others who have come in and actually haven't got a camera yet, who actually want to learn what the best camera to get is as well. And I'm happy to help facilitate that. As long as your camera can work in manual, because it's expected that you'll shoot in manual, exposure, not focus, I should point that out, and can shoot raw file format. That's the only 2 requirements. So full frame, Nikon, Canon, Sony, Fuji, Leica, whatever. We are one world. We are one photography kind of element, but if you have Canon, you're just ahead of the game. So. By me, or I don't know. The accreditation of the course?
So the creative photography certificate and the pro photography certificate are certificates that we issue, but they're not accredited. But the advanced diploma is an accredited course. All right. Any other questions? And sorry. Yeah. So the creative is the first 20 weeks of the pro, and the pro is the first year of the advanced. Yeah. Yes.
We do build in a lot of shooting to try and get out. The one thing with COVID that we kind of had to adapt in was that obviously everyone's in different locations, so it's a bit harder to organise that. But when we're all on site, we do offer that because it's something that I think you need to really do. The more time you have with the camera in the hand, the better, because like I said, you can read a complete death by PowerPoint about shutter speeds, but until you're out in the real world with a shutter speed and a subject, it's not going to make much sense as well. So, and that's the other benefit of the weekend workshop is that I'm out there with you, or whoever's running that workshop's out there with you as well in real world situations, offering up advice. And you know what, it's funny, just to kind of go back to the review session, it's funny, the first couple of weeks, again, students try to show their best work, which is fine. You want to see the best photos as well, but you probably learn more from showing the photos that haven't worked out really well, and to put up something and go, what went wrong? And then we can kind of black box it and say, well, your shutter speed's a bit slow. You could have used this, that, or the other, and kind of work through that process of actually getting a better shot. So you'll learn a bit by me telling you how good you are, but you'll probably learn more by me telling you what you can improve on. And I think that is a real kind of benefit of having that. But yeah, even in the world when we're out there shooting, happy to do that. And even if it's on Zoom, I might get you to go out and take some shots and then come back and show them, and then we can kind of look at them in real time. One of the benefits of Zoom that we had was that I had access to computers that people were sitting in at their locations, and I could look at their Lightroom and look at the choices they've made on the photos and seen the process they've lent up to the particular photo that they've thought is their good photo, and kind of, again, kind of black box that a little bit as well. So that interaction's been a real benefit, and it's still something that we kind of offer. And I think that review process is the real point of difference that we offer, where we can kind of really drill down on each individual photographer, and everyone gets a go, everyone gets a chance to look at their images and grow in that space. Look, it's a changing landscape. It's sort of something that we're all kind of dealing with at the moment. But in terms of the way they operated, it was fantastic. And I'm probably talking a little bit, I haven't sort of looked at where we're going with it, but a hybrid learning environment where we offer up in class and Zoom is fine. We've got students from different areas who can't make it in for any particular reason, and they're on screen. It runs pretty much the same as this, where the students will have access to that camera there, back onto the screen. Going through the PowerPoints, they can ask questions, they can see the screen, we can interact. So it kind of works quite seamlessly. In terms of the student experience, I don't know, you guys want to speak to that at all, or still good? Yeah, ringing endorsement. That's good, because I mean, you get a chance to kind of offer. I find people are a bit braver on Zoom as well. They're actually willing to ask more questions because they're kind of, I don't know, there's like a barrier there that seems to kind of work, but that dialogue and that back and forth works really, really well. And as I said, the ability to go back over the notes, go back over the information that's on the computer is a real benefit as well, because students get a chance to absorb that information in their own time at their own pace, to go back over it and kind of reapply it again.
Scott, would it be fair to say that if someone can't make it to a class for a reason, they just let you know and something's arranged for them?
Yeah, so if you can't make it to class, then shoot me an email, and I'll endeavour to catch up with you before the next class to run you over what you kind of missed, or point you to the My Place, which has got all the information, so that during the week you can look at the homework, you can check out what the notes were, take some images, and we can kind of regroup on that as well. if you miss one class, you're not going to fall behind. Photographers, this is a sweeping statement, but I think it's pretty true. Photographers like to travel. Photographers like to go out and see things and do things. That's kind of why we are photographers, and that's going to happen. I'm not going to stop you from going for 2 weeks to Adelaide just because of class. In fact, I'd openly encourage it, because then you can go and shoot and show me the photos. Probably swing by Barossa, get me some nice Shiraz. That'll probably help with your marks. But we want you to go out and experience things and keep shooting as well. So. Cool.
So that really wraps up the formalities of the evening. Scott's going to be hanging around. So Joe and Kerry, if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to grab a coffee or a tea, ask some more questions. Kerry and I have enrolment forms available, so if you'd like to come and speak to us, we're happy to answer any questions and enrol you if you're very keen, and we'd love to have you all on board as students of PSC. But thank you all very, very much for coming down and having a look at our campus. And if anyone didn't get a chance to have a look at the campus, we can organise for you to have a look afterwards as well. Thank you all.